Hello and welcome to Karnataka Elections 2008. We are in Bangalore, which is considered the technology hub, in fact one of the main 5 technology hubs of the world. It's also called the science capital with over 100 R&D centers. Yet it takes just one set of showers to bring the city to a halt. High tensions wires start breaking, trees start falling on the roads, power supply and water supply goes off for days on end. So this time around, the Congress and BJP have made some very major promises to improve the amenities of Bangalore. Is it really going to happen if they are voted to power? We'll have to wait and find out. I have with me some very eminent, some very prominent Bangaloreans, and we're going to talk to them about what ails the city. Starting with Dr. Sharan Patil, very well-known doctor, and he came into the news recently when he actually conducted a very successful surgery on a 2-year-old with 8 limbs, and that too free of cost. Sitting with him is Mr. Ashok Kheni, who's always in the middle of a lot of controversy. He's known to be a very straight talker, and he's also known for his verbal duels with former Chief Minister Mr. H.D. Kumaraswamy. But what he's better known, of course, as the fact that he is the Managing Director of NICE, and that is the Bangalore-Mysore corridor, which has been, of course, in the middle of a lot of controversy. And with them we have Arundhati Nag, one of the very few talented multilingual actors of the theatre. She also runs her own dream theatre called Ranga Shankara. Thank you very much. And I have, of course, representing the IT sector, how can we forget the IT sector, Mr. N.S. Parthasarathy, who is the co-founder and Chief Operating Officer of Mindtree. Of course, before that, he was with Wipro Technology Solutions. And we have one very interesting person sitting to my left, which is Mr. Naganna from the Lok Paritan Party. Now, this is a very interesting party because it's formed by ex-IITians and professionals. And their point is that it's the government's responsibility is not only to create schemes and allocate money, but to ensure that the benefits reach the common man. I'd like to thank all my panelists for coming in on this show. But before I talk to them, here's a look at some of the problems with Bangalore's infrastructure.
Bangalore, India's IT hub. In less than 2 decades, the leafy retirement zone has evolved into a bustling cosmopolitan city. But today, the garden city is choking with an increasing number of vehicles and congested roads. Bangalore is battling infrastructural problems. Bad roads, traffic jams, power shortage, a soaring crime rate and security threat at IT campuses. Bangalore seems to be losing its sheen. 3 million cars, buses, 2-wheelers and auto rickshaws ply on Bangalore's roads with 1,000 vehicles being added daily. Traffic in the city now crawls at an average of 10 kilometers per hour during morning and evening rush hours. Pedestrian crossings are rare. 17 years after the construction tenders were first floated, Bangalore finally has a spanking new international airport. But even that is not free from controversy. Not only it's a long commute from the heart of the city, but even the new airport is unable to handle the ever-increasing volume of air traffic. The Metro Rail project has an even longer gestation period. It took 25 years to get a nod, and even metro experts admit that the first train will be able to roll on the tracks only by 2011. IT companies are already looking beyond Bangalore for expansion. Can India's Silicon Valley be saved?
Dr. Patil, I'd like to begin with you. This time around, both the BJP and the Congress have talked about a lot of things. In fact, Congress has talked about a 50,000 crore rupee investment just for Bangalore. You've got BJP talking about uninterrupted power supply for Bangalore. Is it too little, too late?
Well, it has to start somewhere. I only hope the promises go all the way and these things really come about and happen. Our city definitely requires a lot of inputs, a lot of thought and a lot of action rather than just talks. So I hope everything translates into action and we move forward. I can understand there is going to be chaos when a city develops as quick as Bangalore has. It does take time if we leave things by themselves. We need proactively to crack these things and get on. And I'm positive the common sense will prevail and we will get there sooner than later.
Mr. Gaini, are you as optimistic? Because considering your experience on the Bangalore-Mysore corridor, do you think common sense will prevail?
So number one, in my opinion, I've been watching this infrastructure scenario for last 12 years in Karnataka and Bangalore particularly. There never has been a lack of funding. It's a misuse of the funding which is responsible for the lack of infrastructure. Okay, it doesn't matter how much money you pour in. If it's misused, you'll not get the infrastructure which you deserve, rightly deserve. So in my opinion, what's happening is infrastructure should be planned, visualized and built for the next generation. Okay, we should visualize what the next generation requires.
But you made a very interesting point there, because even the metro, which has been hanging fire for over 2 decades, the metro officials themselves admit that by the time it comes up, it's going to cater only to 20% of the population.
That's right. Look at the airport now. They're saying the airport is not even open yet. They're already saying it's outdated. You know, it's already, they're talking about expansion now. So the problem is, like I mentioned, it's the misuse of the funds. And number two, what has happened is basically every department, everybody feels that it is their own fiefdom or kingdom, and they do not have the interest of the people in their heart when they plan the infrastructure. I'll give a simple example. Now we got our outer peripheral road built from Hosur Road to Tumkur Road, and the National Highway Authority is building the elevated road on Hosur Road and Tumkur Road. I suggested to them, since you are building this elevated road, why don't you create a connectivity to our road? They refused to do it. They said, no, that's not our road, we are building this. If that created that connectivity, people from center city, all over the city could have traveled quickly. But now what happens is, to come back on our peripheral road, they'll have to travel another 2 kilometers and backtrack to come on the road. This is what I'm talking about, being having their own fiefdom.
Ms. Nag, I'd like to get you to be a little maybe nicer to the government, in the sense that the kind of growth that has come in when we compare Karnataka to some of the other states, you know, whether it's the Human Development Index, whether it's in terms of the kind of investment the state gets, whether it's per capita income that the state generates, the indicators are very, very good. Are we saying that it's just Bangalore itself which has got neglected, or would you say that the phenomenal growth was something that nobody could have kept up with?
Yeah, I think if I speak for theatre, for culture, Karnataka is a great place to be in, because Rangashankara would not have happened if we did not have a sensible government. In the CDP, they have a plan of having a drama theatre site in an extension area, which is fantastic. I don't think many states in the country have it. And actually Rangashankara was funded, not all of it, but a part of it was funded by the Ministry of Culture in Karnataka with no strings attached. So a project like Rangashankara could happen over here, yeah. But as far as infrastructure is concerned, as far as the moral fiber of people is concerned, I think we all need to really pick up a hue and cry. There's something going wrong with the amount of corruption that is on over here, and it is the corruption of the mind, of the whole moral fiber of people.
When you get caught in a traffic jam in Bangalore, what is it that the first thing that you think of? Is it the fact that Rangashankara would not have been able to come up anywhere else, or the fact that, oh my God, can somebody do something about this?
Can somebody do something? I mean, what is a theatre? It's just a small drama theatre. Life is so much larger, and India has so much drama in real life. Do we need theatres? I had a friend who came from England, Simon McBurney, and he was looking at the roads and the traffic in Bangalore, and he said, my God, you have so much drama, do you really need to do theatre? So I do, of course, curse the powers that be for not having had the vision to see. Well, look at the pitiable little flyovers that we have built. Look at the roads. Nothing, and we had very bright people sitting on decisions. Couldn't they see that 10 years or 2 years from now, this city is going to grow like this? You feel helpless.
Right.
You feel helpless, but I definitely would also say that one is extremely proud of the the quality of people who have given to this city. We need to get our act together as
Right.
citizens and as citizens demanding that the government be
something should happen,
answerable.
right.
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Parthasarathy, yours is like, what can I call it, the blue-eyed baby of the entire state, providing amazing employment, revenues. There are no two questions about it. Yet at the same time, the IT sector always gets blamed for the fact that you get favored a bit too much. Do you agree?
I don't agree at all. First of all, I think infrastructure is required by everybody. Just like Arundhati said, I mean, as a common person, you are stuck in traffic, you feel frustrated. At the end of the day, it's your valuable time. Now, going back to the more fundamental question, in my opinion, I think if we'll have to debate as to what are the fundamental reasons behind it. I believe urban planning is a very specialized area, and I think you can't treat urban planning like any other planning. That's number one. So, and there are structural issues related to the way the government functions, and the urban planning of cities is actually with the rest of the state government, and the state government has many other things to take care of, not just take care of the city. That's number one. Number two is actually, I think everybody needs better infrastructure. It's not IT, it's not any one industry, it's not theatre, it doesn't matter. You and me as a common person, as a common tax paying person, we need better infrastructure. Infrastructure has not kept pace with growth, and that's a point that you're alluding to. I think it's also a question of proper planning. I think Ashok rightly mentioned planning well ahead of time. You can't be planning for today, because you'll quickly run out of ideas in terms of what you need to do as the city expands.
Right. I'd like to bring in Mr. Nagana over here. Ms. Nag also made this point about the fact that sometimes we feel helpless. You have decided, and your party has decided, that it's time people did something. Why did this thought come about?
See, first of all, I want to deviate a little bit about Mr. Ashokini's point that money is not a problem. Money is a problem in Karnataka state government, because they budget around 45,000 crores. Out of that, every year they are borrowing around 6,000 crores. If you leave 6,000 crores, they have only 39,000 crores. Out of 39,000 crores, as a salary expenditure, it is coming to around 23,000 crores. They are left out with only 16,000 crores for this entire state. So it is not possible by them to manage. Simply Congress and BJP is making a false statement during election time. So I am going to tell them point blankly, they cannot make it. The fact is, we pay around 45,000 crores of tax money to the central government. Central government in turn transfers money to each state government based on the population. We are almost the second highest taxpayers in the country, but they pay us only 8,000 crores, whereas UP gets around 34,000 crores.
But Mr. Nagana, won't it be better if you didn't look at just the state, which is, I think, the problem with this country. We never look at us being part of the country. We look at us being from Karnataka or from Punjab or from Uttar Pradesh. Fact of the matter is, this state does very well. Fact of the matter is that the kind of decadal growth that this state has seen is the highest in the country.
Absolutely.
And don't you think there is some kind of a responsibility towards other states which don't do so well?
See, responsibility politicians has to take, but unfortunately they are not taken all these years. So that is the biggest problem in our state. See, everybody makes only false statements. Any politician, any leader makes only false statement. They don't have anything in their hand, and simply they give a false commitment to the public.
Yet let's come back to Mr. Kenny. I'd like to bring you in on this infrastructure point over here. Public-private partnership is something which is a term which is actually originated in Karnataka, and if there has been some kind of implementation of this, that has also been basically in Karnataka. Your own experience, I know, has not been very great in this field. Despite that, do you think the concept by itself can work?
Yes, I think that there has to be some fundamental changes to the law. For example, when we started our project, the laws of the country did not allow for a private-public partnership. And we had to work to change our 17 acts and laws, not only in central and state, to make this happen. That's helping all over the country now, including your golden quadrilateral triangle and other things. But what is required is, when infrastructure, irrespective, serves you, irrespective of your caste, your political affiliations, your wealth, okay, your sex, it serves everybody the same way. It doesn't discriminate. So what is required is, once a project is cleared, infrastructure, there should be a law, no future government can meddle with it. So then it passes through.
But Mr. Kenny, if you see the rate of implementation of most projects in Karnataka is about 43.3% compared to the national average of 44%. So it's not doing too poorly compared to other states. Do you feel by itself, if we see the figure, it's not very high?
It's because the problem is because of the politician. The people in political think that suppose a project is awarded to Mr. X based on the water merit qualifications, etc. When a new government comes, he thinks, oh, this guy must have paid the other guy, so he wants his pound of flesh. Okay, so this is the system is such, they think that projects are got only by paying a pound of flesh, okay, by paying money. So which is not entirely true. Okay, so what is required is, suppose if we have a law which says once the project is cleared, especially should classify as core infrastructure projects, nobody can touch it. And second thing you have to do is the officers who are in charge of those projects, if those projects get delayed, let's say project get delayed by 2 years, when the project is complete, that officer should be kept without any job for 2 years as punishment.
Well, that's a way. I'm going to take a break, but Mr. Padhasi, I'm going to come back to you because I want to come back to this issue of public-private partnership, and I'm going to get reactions from everybody over here, and also I'm going to try and get some solutions from them. Welcome back. You're with us at NewsX and you're watching our special Karnataka Elections 2008. We are in Bangalore and we're talking about some of the problems of infrastructure in this city. Mr. Parthasadi, before we took a break, there was this very interesting point being made about public-private partnership. Now, the IT sector can play a far more proactive role than it has done so far. Why is it? Is it because of the kind of experience that Mr. Narayan Murthy had, that the IT sector has kind of taken a back seat?
To some extent it is, but you know, the situation is that private-public partnership has to be well defined by a set of governance rules. I mean, look at what happened to Mr. Narayan Murthy. I mean, after that incident, very few people would like to come and participate. If there are certain issues that get resolved, I believe IT industry will definitely come forward. There are specialists involved in this. For example, you look at, we were just talking about it during the break, is that you look at any intersection in Bangalore, forget the thousands of crores and 10,000 crores that we're talking about, it's badly designed. Now, there is expertise available. There's expertise available in the IT industry, there's expertise available in the educational institutions in India. There is so much of information available today. But there has to be a forum, there has to be a form of governance under which this can get executed. We can't depend on just the bureaucracy and a set of engineers to be able to go and execute it. That is what is required to be able to ensure that the money is well spent. Whatever money is spent, it's well spent in terms of, take Makery Circle. It's an important intersection in Bangalore. We spent 2 years waiting for that whole thing to come up. It's so badly designed. The approach to it is so bad. And I think, I'm sure some of you are going through it every day.
But you're all very prominent people. Why is it that the IT sector, yes, of course, Mr. Narayan Murthy did not have a very great experience, but the fact of the matter is that it is, unless citizens themselves play some kind of a role, do some kind of participation, it is not going to be possible for things to improve.
You know, at the end of the day, IT industry is a business. We have a business to run. We are competing against everybody in the world. And we expect the government to provide us basic infrastructure to be able to function. So there is a limit to which you can expect an IT industry, or any industry for that matter, to be able to come and help for the government to move forward. But we'll be more than happy to do that. I think most of the industry will be happy to do that.
Okay. There's a slightly sensitive issue which pertains more to the IT sector, because a lot of Bangaloreans seem to complain that the IT sector has brought in a lot of what they call outsiders and that they are the ones who are changing the culture of the city and as well as causing some of the traffic problems. And would you agree?
Well, I really think that when you have a manpower driven industry then of this nature, it would make sense to actually have satellite towns which are self-sufficient and well planned, and have this industry actually move out. It doesn't have to congest the city. As far as outsiders are concerned, I'm also considered an outsider, so I'm the quintessential outsider.
Perhaps a cultured outsider.
I really think Indians are cultured. By and large, the urban children are cultured. They come from different cities. What would be very nice if every Indian did was, wherever you go, I mean, if you go to China, try to learn a little about that culture and the language and respect it. It's beautiful.
Is that,
this
is
is
that
such a
missing?
fantastic country we
Dr. Patil, is
occupy.
that missing here?
Well, I think it has reached the proportion of everybody finding their own comfort levels. So I'm not, personally, I have no qualms about that. But the Tamilians feel Bangalore belongs to them. The Kerala people feel it belongs to them. There are a large number of them. So there's a lot of comfort zone within themselves. So probably that has kind of stopped this mixing of cultures. But every culture is great, and that's why it's a cosmopolitan
Dr. Kenny,
city.
let's get a reaction from you, because a lot of people here, and I've spoken to a lot of people who say, you know, North Indians come in and they do not know how, what traffic is all about. They do not observe the rules. Let's get a straight answer from you.
No, one of the things, you know.
Of course they are pushy. North Indians are pushier than the South
No,
Indians.
I'd rather put it this way, that Karnataka now has only 65% of the population is Kannadigas. 35%. It's not only happening in Bangalore, throughout the state.
Yeah.
The reason for that is Kannadigas by nature are very calm, are not fighting type of people. That has happened because of the Maharajas. We have been in the palace. Maharajas gave a long years, several centuries of a peace-loving culture, and they actually were more involved in culture, arts, and things like that, songs and things like that. So as people as itself have become not non-violent. I'll give you an example.
Be as straight as Ms. Nag is.
Yeah. See, I'll give
Yes, she put it very well.
No, I'll give you an example, okay? Now what happened when we open up Peripheral Road, there is section 1 kilometer of road which goes to IT company. About 70,000 people use that road, and that one section, that land belongs to one of the politicians. You know who it is. So they didn't want to build the road there. So that one section is all mud road. So I felt this way, that if I open the rest of the road and people will be so upset, they'll start demonstrating and they'll demand that road be complete. But they all use that mud road, they take 20 minutes, they curse that person and keep going. They don't do anything about it. So my theory that people will rise up in revolt and demand it be completed is gone to nuts. Okay?
All right,
I think that comes back to the point. I think we need to set our expectations much higher. Going back to the point that you mentioned, you know, we can't be complacent with the fact that 43%, the number that you figure, and we shouldn't be complacent about. We should be demanding 90%. We should be demanding 100% of the road,
Right.
and not 99% of the road.
Right. Mr. Nagana, I'd like to get a reaction from you on this outsider issue.
You cannot be biased, because everybody is an India. Anywhere anybody can come and go. And if the talents are available in North India, and if they are coming to IT sector, we should welcome them. And you cannot say, okay, you don't have a sufficient manpower here, and you cannot say the IT company to just keep quiet. The industry has to grow mainly. So whoever comes, we have to give them a
That's why I
chance.
said it's very important as Indians, wherever we go.
See, we should look at mainly the country's growth.
It's not much of an effort to just try to respect the language of that place, try to learn a little about the food, about the people, about the culture. It's fantastic. I mean, you go to France, people don't talk to you in English, they talk to you only in French. And anybody who has gone even passed through Paris comes back to India speaking.
But that's why Paris is considered so unfriendly.
Yeah,
And
it is.
people don't like to
that's
go
why,
there.
I mean, there's something fantastic about India, and I guess the youngsters, especially Indian youngsters, I think they would do very well if they went to Ludhiana and tried to learn about the Punjabi lassi and just a bit about that culture, sarson ka saag, and you learn a little about this place too.
No, but I think that happens even today. I think the bigger issue,
It doesn't.
You know, it happens in small pockets. You know, there will always be people. You know, I call that as linguistic intelligence. Some people get it very easily. Some people don't get it so easily. But I think the bigger issue is actually coming back to the issue of infrastructure. I think it's a question of, you know, we have to create an education campaign to saying it's cool to follow rules, because I believe. I think that's a bigger issue. Look at the violations which happens in traffic today. I can bet myself that 99% of them is done by educated people. They just want to, you know, you reach probably 1 minute faster than otherwise. I think we need to, you know, if not for this generation, I think if we start in schools saying that it's cool to follow rules, and maybe by the time that generation comes in, we'll be in a better
another
So the
thing, when we
implementation
talk
of
about
law is very
congestion-
poor in our country.
Yeah, but when we talk about implementation, maybe some of the laws, for example, you have in cities like New York or London, you've got these very heavy parking fees, which kind of stops people from going in their own cars. You also have these things of, you know, only a red colored car can go on a certain day. Do you think that kind of thing would work in a city like this?
That kind of infrastructure is not available in our country. That is a problem.
Yes,
To do that.
See, there's another thing which is important is what's missing. If you see any major city in the world, the biggest income comes from parking lots. Parking lots, taxes and parking lot ownership brings them the income. And I think what is required is that 1/3 of our roads are occupied by cars parked there. So if you start building parking lots and then have the people move there and generate revenue, and then suddenly your road capacity will increase by 1/3. Second thing which is important is all over the world when the planning is done, the FSI they give you to build is based on the capacity of the carrying capacity of the road, not just the width of the road. In India, what they do is just the width of the road. So what a developer does, just in front of his apartment complex, he makes it an 18-meter road. So then he gets FSI. The moment he leave his frontage, it go down to 7.5 meters. So this creates this is actually bogus. Okay. So this is what is required is that you should look at, in my opinion, there should not be no new construction allowed in Bangalore because all roads in Bangalore are in failure mode. So any other planning, like he mentioned about the planning authority, urban planning authority, if apply, that none of the roads can carry any new traffic capacity.
Are you confident that no matter who comes to power this time, if there is stability, your project will go through?
I think my project is already through because my project is beyond any politics, okay? It's gone beyond that, okay? Because we are the umbrella of the Supreme Court over us.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. That umbrella is as solid as the Constitution of India gets. So nobody can touch our project.
Okay.
They could only place some missiles and things like that, some nuisance values, some pinch, but it will go away.
So do you think that concept of satellite townships, even Mysore was supposed to take the load of Bangalore, but it really hasn't. Now you've got Bangalore, Mangalore and Mysore taking up 40% of the urban population. Do you think there can be some planning to have certain alternate townships as well?
Absolutely, but prior to that, what I suggest, we should have a 6-lane road for all the district levels. You should connect all the district levels with a 6-lane road. Then you can shift manufacturing industries to outside Bangalore city, and then you can build satellite towns. Then only it decongests Bangalore city. Unless you give infrastructure for industries, simply we sit and talk and okay, we will build satellite towns and all. It doesn't serve the purpose at all.
But I'd like to talk a little bit about health infrastructure. We talk about roads, development, etc. There is a lot of talk about a health city concept.
Yes.
Is that possible, and is there some kind of cooperation that we can see between the private healthcare sector and government?
Health City is mainly focused at bringing down the cost of healthcare in India. And how it happens, how it is possible is it's very amazing how when you focus on the cost factor, how we can bring down the cost.
How do you assess the present healthcare in this state compared to the rest of the country and by itself?
Yeah, I think Bangalore has grown in leaps and bounds in the last few years as far as healthcare is concerned, and I can see it going forward this way. We have tremendous amount of talent in this state, and there is a lot of people who are coming back from abroad, and there's what we call the reverse brain drain today in health sector especially, and things becoming uncomfortable in Europe has made it all the more possible for great talent to come back. And all we doctors are, what we are very fond of is to be able to do the best possible to the people. Unfortunately, this doesn't reach out to everybody because of the cost constraints. If we can bridge that gap, we can go a long way in providing quality care to the masses. I have to add, in healthcare, private sector brings in a lot of finesse and a lot of vigor to the healthcare. But if there is a public-private initiative, what will be possible to reach the masses. You cannot beat the government infrastructure which reaches
Absolutely
right down
not.
to the bottom.
Absolutely not.
And I strongly believe the best and the quickest way forward is public-private initiative.
Yeah, which a very important point you raised, Dr. Patil. Mr. Nagana, one of the primary objectives has been the fact that for every 30,000 people there would be a primary healthcare center, and
Correct.
then for every 20,000 there would be a dispensary.
Correct.
And then going down to a sub-level completely for about 5,000 people. How achievable is that? And again, are you looking at government doing this completely on its own?
It is better if government can take up the project. At least if you look at the cost factor, you have to look at the common man also. Today we are not if you look at in Karnataka, they have issued around 60 lakh BPL cards. If you privatize everywhere, the cost also might go up to the public. So you have to, especially the health center, it is better government does that. and every ward should have a health center compulsorily. At least the common man can utilize the services, and if the private companies can afford that much of a cost, it is fair enough.
Can we get a quick reaction?
Karnataka was probably the first state to start with this Yashaswini program.
Yes, absolutely. That is a very successful
which is
scheme.
Rural insurance,
Yes.
Healthcare insurance. I think it's a great beginning.
Yes.
I think the challenge is sustainability.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's easy to start off new initiatives. You have to sustain it throughout the life of the program.
Yes.
And I think if you're able to ensure that it reaches everybody else
Absolutely true.
in the state, I think that's a great beginning Karnataka made.
I think the government is very good at education. Government is very good, and they have to focus on preventive medicine. They have to focus on areas which the government has got great outreach. What the government lacks, I mean, I have to say this blatantly, is what government lacks is the vigor. And in private sector, all of us work for 14 hours to 16 hours, and no health infrastructure right across the globe is sustainable if they work for 8 hours.
Right.
The buildings, the equipment, the infrastructure cannot be sustainable if they work for 8 hours a day. We have to work for that extra hours, and there is a need to do that. There is a huge need to do that. So
Well, that is actually like changing the mindset of the entire workforce, which
no,
is...
I don't think the solution is very difficult if we really focus on it. Most of the elections across the world are fought on the health issues today. And I'm hoping to see one day in our country elections are fought on health issues. I don't think there's anything more basic than healthcare.
I think if we get over the food crisis, maybe we will come to health as well in this country. I will take a break now.
Yes.
And when we come back, I'm going to ask all our panelists who have some amazing ideas, and some of them very draconian, to give us some practical solutions. Welcome back. You're watching Karnataka Elections 2008, our special show from Bangalore, and this show is being completely dedicated to civic amenities and to infrastructure and to what can be done to make Bangalore once again known as the best city of the country. Mr. Parthasarathi, let's begin with you in this section, which is that we're talking about a GSDP growth rate, an aim of about 9%, a 12% average annual industrial growth between 2006 and 2011. How sustainable is that?
I think it's very much sustainable. I think we have built a good base on which we can definitely grow. Of course, there are certain bottlenecks, and but those bottlenecks are not showstoppers at this point in time. If we don't fix them, they will become showstoppers, and that's the biggest worry that we all have in the industry.
The very interesting thing is, we all know about the problems of infrastructure, yet when it comes to FDI, we've got 17.5% of the total country's foreign direct investment coming to Karnataka. So would you say that the multinationals have as yet not given up on us?
Why multinationals? Even we have not given up. I think you talked about whether do you live on hope. We live on hope, absolutely yes. The infrastructure has improved. I mean, you talk about the inner ring road. I mean, 5 years back, I know that ring road didn't exist. So there is an improvement. But the pace at which this progress happens is not to our satisfaction, not to the satisfaction of everybody else. And that's where the biggest challenge is. Second is, I think there are some, talked about petty politics, small things that we are not able to finish for some reason, and then that becomes a bottleneck. And I think so we are extremely confident, and I think whether it's the number of software units that get registered in Karnataka state, or the growth in terms of sheer revenue terms, in terms of what Karnataka contributes, I think that still continues to be good.
So again, let's get a reaction from you. Have you been dissuaded, or do you feel things will improve?
I think it's improving. You can see that, for example, in 1995, there's hardly any middle class existed in India. Now there's a tremendous middle class. Look at the shopping malls. They're full of young people buying things. And I think it's cascading. It's actually, if you see in my opinion, that this growth is going to sustain. But growth will not sustain just because of what they talk about, the American economy or something. It's going to be an internal economy because of middle class, and also people have become aware of the products, goods and products which they're not aware of. I think it's going to sustain. And also now people also have quite a substantial comfort level in taking up large projects. When I took up this project, and I remember all the bankers advised me it was supposed to be 2,500 crore project that time. They said, we can't do that big project in India. They said break it down into 1,000 crore projects. Now 1,000 crore projects, anybody's doing, your neighbors are doing, anybody's doing, So the question is, there's a comfort level now. See, the people are in India are willing to take up a giant leap now. So I'm very confident Indian economy will
Mr.
grow.
Parthasarathi, good point. Does the state need lots of smaller projects, or does it need a couple of very big projects?
I think it's not a question of size, in my opinion. I think it's a question of proper planning. If you need a small flyover, you build a small flyover. But I think the size of that project should be determined not keeping in mind today's problems, but 50 years from now. If not 50 years from now, 20 years from now. I think that is what should determine the size of the investment.
All right.
Not necessarily in terms of breaking it up into small projects. Because I believe today, like you talked about, not only bankers are comfortable, today project management expertise is available to be able to manage, execute on time very large projects. It's just that in some projects you just go on forever.
Ms. Nag, we are yet not sure who's going to win the election. There are three possibilities: Congress in majority, BJP in majority, or a hung assembly where you've got JDS playing an important role. But one thing we are
That's a
sure
dangerous
is that we
one.
are looking for stability. Do you feel whoever comes to power, whether it's a coalition or whether it's one of the national parties, there is going to be a lot of improvement in infrastructure because there's no alternative?
I guess that you can't go any lower than where you are right now, so there's only up to look. I'm not being pessimistic, but that's the truth. The truth is that I don't think the people of Bangalore are going to allow it to go any further down. So all of us have got to really get together, and the public answerability factor has to come in. I guess the citizens have to wake up. It is not as if the government can do whatever it wants. And Karnataka does have, Bangalore does have institutions like the Janagraha, where you have public-private participation, you have people asking the government, where is the money being spent in my ward? I want to be part of it. I think that has to really become a more active thing. We can't let it pass.
And other thing which has happened is the most important thing which has happened, I think we've missed out on it, is Right to Information Act.
Yes.
Right to Information Act has given the power to the average citizen to find out what's happening. Okay, and the courts have been very good in that, in trying to protect the rights of the citizen to have the right information. Second thing that's happened is the first cell phone, when I started the project in 1995, to get a telephone line, I had to go to a member of parliament to get a telephone line. Okay, now even your cook would have a cell phone, so people are able to communicate, send SMS and things like that. So the communication has improved. Third thing that's happened is, that time we had only 1 or 2 TV channels. Now in Kannada itself we got over 10 channels. So people are a lot more able to learn, hear, and the information not controlled by few, few powerful people. So I think because of that, because of
Thank you. At least you're acknowledging the fact that media helps somewhere or the other.
people like you who are speaking up and who are going to talk, and it's extremely healthy thing, and a lot of young people. And look at this way, 50% of our economy is driven by people under 25 years of age. That's just, you don't hear of that anywhere else in the world.
That's true.
50% of the economy by our children. Okay, the children are leading the way, and naturally they're going to demand what's going to happen with their tax money. They're going to demand why they're not getting a better service, because these children are traveling all over the world, they see better things.
The exposure levels are much different, yeah.
We have 25 years
Yes.
before these children are 50 years old. We have that much time to really
Well, we do
get
have
our
one of the
developmental
highest
act
young
together.
populations, yeah. Mr. Nagarna, but I'd like to bring you in here. Although, of course, the reaction that I'm getting from here is that whoever forms the government, there is no going back on infrastructure. Do you agree?
Yes, definitely. There will be a growth, definitely.
So
There will
whoever
not be a
comes in,
degrowth for infrastructure.
what about you? What is it that is going to be your agenda, your party's agenda?
We want to connect all the district levels with 6-lane roads. Shift all the major industries from Bangalore cities to national highways. So decongest Bangalore city. Then continue this metro rail project, complete the project without any hurdles.
But aren't you being a little ambitious because you're not contesting too many seats?
That's okay, but even if you have 1 or 2 seats also, we can make a change. Today that we have reached a situation, the government which is running says, okay, I have made around 1,000 crores. The people who are sitting opposite, they say, okay, I will make 500 crores. So we have reached that situation. You have to break that somewhere.
Tell us, what was it that made you and the others in the party actually, actually professionals come together to join politics?
You know the problem, because because of the problem we are all sitting here. So we have waited so long and they didn't do it, and we want to react for that. So that's why we are reacting it.
Because most of us who are in positions of power are so afraid of the word
Absolutely.
politics and politicians. It's become like a bad word, really.
Because 2.5 years back, when I started this activity, a lot of people, even my relatives, used to say, "You will get a threatening calls." I've been still waiting to get a threatening call. I've not received any threatening call so far.
Maybe because there was president's rule. But
See, other thing that's happened is, I've been going around the state telling people to register 100% and vote 100%. I'm telling them that people like Bhagat Singh, okay, Mahatma Gandhi, Azad, or Subhash Chandra Bose have laid down their life to get us freedom. What does freedom mean? Only two things. One, we have our own Tiranga or flag, that we have our own self-pride, self-respect, we could identify ourselves as a country. The second is the right to vote. If you're not going to vote, that means all the sacrifice these people have done is gone to waste. So if 100% of people start voting, then what happens? You take the caste out of politics, you take money power out of politics, because now nobody will have enough caste or money to make an influence.
But Dr. Kane, you've made a very, very interesting point, because what we've seen as a trend, whether it's general elections or assembly elections, is when we talk about voter turnout, it's always higher in rural centers rather than urban areas. And there's this sense of disenchantment or this sense of contentment because of which the urban voter does not go out.
Yes.
Is that something that could change?
Yeah, I think it definitely has to change. I think there's no point sitting and talking, all of us, and if you're not going to go out and vote. In democracy, what is more sacrosanct than voting, really? I have this argument with all my friends all the time. You have no right to complain if you don't vote, you know. And in fact, I mean, I could go to one extent further and say the people who vote should get special privilege. That way you incentivize people to go and vote. I mean, it's no good to think that you're not, I'm only one person who thinks like that. That's wrong. And you just have to talk out loud and clear, and there will be a lot of people to echo with you, and like he has started his own thing, and I'm sure the crowd will gather with him and get pace, and sometimes
do you
things
feel
will change.
professionals like Mr. Nagranna here would actually make a difference to the political firmament?
I definitely think so. I think the middle class muttering is very important in democracy. We have to keep muttering. It will gather pace and we will achieve something. And I also believe that we as a country, we are so dependent still on the government to do things, because we have not, it's not like the European countries where most of the things are privatized. Whether it's a coalition government or whether the government changes every 3 months, it doesn't make a difference for the country. In our country, it makes a big difference. If there is a government which is stable, which is able to deliver the goods and have a healthy opposition, if it is coalition government, we are going to slow down the pace. I only wish we had something
coalition
stable.
politics are here to stay, Dr. Patil. There's nothing we can do about
agree,
it.
I agree.
But it's
Maybe
actually getting worse than coalition politics, because now I don't know which politician belongs to which party, because they're playing musical chairs. So it's worse than coalition politics.
Well, this time around in Karnataka, you really don't know whether the JDS leader is now in Congress or the Congress leader has moved to BJP. We're not
we
sure.
don't know.
The IPL matches, you see, so you don't know who's
At
in
least,
which
at least in IPL, you're playing for the entire series, you cannot change. Here, they keep changing every week.
Dr. Patil, we're running out of time, but I'd like to begin with you.
Yeah.
Let's put a time frame when you think the city's infrastructure will improve.
That's a tough one. It is. I would think within the next 4 years or so, it should see a big change. And at one time, London was doomed as a city which is gone, and there came a radical change in the whole city. The pollution was to the point that they thought London is going to be history, nobody's going to hear about it, and there was a radical change. Calcutta could change and become a good city. We need a maverick at the moment, and I think they're somewhere around the corner. Somebody will come and bell the cat. Something will happen. Yeah.
Delhi, they implemented the CNG against such odds.
Absolutely.
But what a difference it has made.
Totally.
It
And
has
what
got
is
pollution levels
stopping
down.
Bangalore from following good practices
See,
that have been really implemented in other cities?
See, I adopted Bidar district, which is the one of the 50 most backward district in the country. And I made a commitment to the people of Bidar. In 5 years, Bidar would be the most advanced district in the whole state of Karnataka.
Let's quickly, because I'm running out of time.
I
Just
tell
let's
you
put
why.
a time frame on Bangalore. Just Bangalore.
I think within 5 years we'll have a good infrastructure.
Ms. Nag, how many years?
Should take 4 to 5
About
years.
4 to 5
yeah.
years?
It will take 5 years, but I think it has to be a continuous process. You can't put a 5-year frame and say, everything is done with, because 5 years later we'll have a new set of
By
problems.
then, yeah.
So I think it has to be I think infrastructure improvement has to be a continuous process. It's not an end in itself.
Last word from you, Mr. Naganna.
If you have a good, if you get a good decision maker in the government, definitely it will take 5 years. Otherwise,
Alright.
it will continue for another 10 years.
If you are the decision maker, you think it will happen in 5 years?
Definitely.
Well,
Definitely.
we'll have to wait and see. I'd like to thank all my guests for coming in today. We had a very nice, very enjoyable and very interesting discussion. And what is the best thing is that despite suffering so much, you find 5 very, 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 very optimistic Bangaloreans who feel that things will improve. Thank you very much and thank you for watching the show.